Okay, so this is supposed to be an hour. I'm not gonna lie, typically I go through it pretty fast. I did add more content just in case, but I do like questions at the end if y'all or make time for it just in case. So, but I am Brittany Bryant with the Counseling Center. Um, how do I see? I don't know how to. Ah, I may have to just do it like this instead so that I can actually, because it's not letting me change the screen. Okay, so Brittany Bryant, I have a master's of science in counseling. I'm an LPCI, which means I'm a licensed professional counselor intern. I'm the outreach and prevention coordinator and staff counselor at the Counseling Center. So how to work with a counseling center. To be eligible, you just have to be a currently enrolled student. Your student fees already pay for counseling. So yes, they're free. Technically, you already pay for them. So when you come in, there's no exchanging fees, money, anything like that. You've already paid for it. So our process, so we are flattered when people request certain counselors, but we have a process to assign students to the counselor that best fits their needs and concerns and schedule. I think we have 8 to 10 therapists right now. So it kind of just depends on where you're at and what kind of treatment you need, and then who's available at what times, and if that time matches with your time. Office hours are Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. After hours crisis assistance. So if you're in a crisis and you call our number, which is the 903-886-5145, if you call that number after hours, you'll still be answered by a licensed counselor or physician. I'm pretty sure, like, if it's an emergency, they'll tell you to call 911. Otherwise, they'll do some type of crisis intervention with you. And then that kind of goes directly to us. So if you call the crisis hotline and you're a client of ours, we know, which is good for us because it helps us in therapy. Obviously, I don't know why this is not on here, but it is a little different right now with COVID-19. So everything we do is distance counseling. So it's either by phone, using audio only, or video using audio and video. And you can do that with a phone, laptop, it doesn't matter. But we use Zoom, and we do use a HIPAA compliant one that's supposed to protect the confidentiality and not supposed to be hacked. So we haven't had problems with it yet. Otherwise, students do drop by to schedule an intake appointment. And an intake appointment is basically just your first appointment with whatever therapist they put you with. Right now, you just call and schedule an appointment, and they get you on the schedule. And then normally, in a normal semester, we would have drop-in hours from 2 to 4 every day. And that is where you don't have to make an appointment. Whether you're in crisis or you just need somebody to talk to, it can be a one and done type thing to where you just go that day because you needed it and then you're done, you don't schedule. Regardless, you don't have to have an appointment during those times. Right now, we are not doing those with everything kind of going on. However, you still can call if you are in a crisis and it is an emergency, you still can call and we'll try to put you with someone. I've had to do that later in the day that wasn't on my schedule. Let's see. Okay, so we offer individual and couples. The couples, you have to be both enrolled, and you have to have been together for a year to be eligible. Group counseling, client and not client groups. So that means like you can be one of my clients and be in a group counseling, but also we have different groups to where you don't have to be a client at the counseling center to join a group. You can just join the group. And we do have open and closed groups. So an open group is a drop-in group. So like at any point during the series of the groups, you can just drop in. You don't have to do like an assessment, or it's not a closed group to where nobody else can join while you're in the middle of it. We provide crisis intervention, crisis response, educational outreach, which is what this is. It's on the next slide and a couple of slides, I'll kind of show you some main topics that we do. Consultation and referral, psychiatric medication management for counseling center clients. And the reason that says that is because we have some people who come who just want medication, and that's not how the policy goes. You have to seek therapy first and do that simultaneously with medication management if needed, talk therapy, usually we try to get everything out through talk therapy first. And then if you need assistance with medication, we try to add that in there. We do have a sensory room. It is a small room. Whether you're autistic or you're just sensitive to sound, light, anything like that, it's very soothing. You can sit in there by yourself while you're waiting, or you can just come in and sit in there. You don't have to have an appointment. And then we do workshops. So right now they're live on Zoom. And we're actually, I didn't add this on there because we just finalized this today, but we're actually doing a pre-recorded kind of drop in with different therapists. It'll be like a 5-minute mindful to a tea, while you're drinking your tea or coffee in the morning. We'll upload a video of, maybe talking about time management or, coping skills, different things like that. So that will be advertised once that is finalized. Okay, so the educational outreach, that is, like I said, that's kind of what I'm doing here. I'm providing information about the counseling center to those that are needing it and requesting it. A step further, like today, we're mainly just going over counseling center services and then self-care and resiliency, but this is a list of different topics that we have, and we're in the middle of adding more if possible. But some of those topics are adjusting to college, anxiety, body image and eating concerns, crisis debriefing, depression, domestic violence prevention, grief and loss, relationships, sexual assault prevention, stress management, substance use concerns, suicide prevention, test anxiety, time management, and we put other on there because sometimes there is a specific need that a request has that is not on the list. And then that is just like a blank box that you can type in whatever you need for the request. Typically, let's see if it says that. Yeah, so all requests need to be submitted at least 2 weeks in advance. That gives us enough time to get a therapist available and create whatever PowerPoint if need be, if it's not already on there. If it doesn't give us at least 2 weeks, it's probably not going to be accepted. Okay, so with the counseling center, we see all kinds of things, all kinds of areas, but these are different types of distress that we do see. So there's emotional. So with that comes anxiety, depression, thoughts of suicide or death. It's not on here, but self-harm. It is different from suicide, okay? Grief and loss, disordered eating, poor contact with reality. There's distress caused by trauma or abuse, sexual assault, stalking, harassment, hate crimes and incidents, hazing, abusive relationships. And then there's general health and wellness distress, so academic failure or dismissal, adjusting in general, transitioning, substance abuse, self-injury, distress and disruptive students, excessively demanding or dependence, and then aggressive and potentially violent. So that is definitely not a comprehensive list, but it's some of the stuff that we see in the counseling center. I hope y'all can see this. I know it's a little small. Okay, so with anxiety, basically it's a little bit more intense than stress. Okay, so it's constantly tense, worried, or on edge. Quality of life affected. Your basically everyday life. It's obviously different from depression, but it's the same in that it affects your everyday life. Your normal capabilities you're not as equipped to do. Continually stressed by fears, and a lot of times those fears are irrational. Feels that something bad will happen. So that kind of goes back to the negative thought processes, jumping to conclusions, avoiding activities or situations because they create anxiety. So people tend to isolate themselves, especially people with social anxiety, because just thought about being in a situation and those thinking errors that we have, they prevent you from doing those things. And depression, and you'll see that anxiety, depression, and stress are the main three that I go over because those are the main ones we see in the counseling center. So with depression, there's depressed mood, trouble concentrating, irritability and fatigue, significant weight loss or weight gain. So it really depends on the person. Some people just don't eat flat out, and some people eat way too much. You do lose pleasure or interest in doing normal activities. You just don't feel like it. There's a lack of motivation, feelings of worthlessness, possible suicidal ideations, thoughts of death or ending your life. And I didn't add this on there, but it kind of goes with feelings of worthlessness. is one of the main things that causes depression is a sense of hopelessness, and you feel like you don't have a purpose and meaning in life. So that's one of the main things that the goal that we try to achieve whenever you do come in with depression and depressed mood is finding that purpose again. And then just overall stress in general. So you'll see there's kind of like physical and emotional. So there's inability to concentrate, seeing only the negative, constant worrying, moodiness. But then if you go the other side, it's more physical. So aches and pains, frequent headaches and backaches, frequent colds. So if you're frequently doing this, it's not just a one-time thing, and you realize that you're more sick, more tired, problems eating or sleeping, your increased alcohol and drug use, withdrawal from others, procrastinating or neglecting responsibilities. When these are more intense, that's when you know something else is probably going on. So, like I said, the two main things we're going to go over after that is practicing self-care and then resilience. So practicing self-care, I'm a very holistic approach type therapist. I love using every single dimension of wellness to be able to get a holistic approach and create well-being. So I'm only going to focus on 3 for self-care, but we'll kind of go into more into resiliency. So sleep. I know it's kind of funny. Either we did a sleep study one time at an event, and people were getting anywhere from 3 hours of sleep to 12 hours of sleep. So here's some really good pointers that I've found, and I've even tried these with certain clients, and most of the time they do work if you're consistent with it. So go to bed and get up at the same time every day. So keeping it consistent, that's the key to everything. Avoid pulling all-nighters. It can lead to poor retention and recall, impaired concentration, stress, and anxiety. So if you know that you don't study well or retain information after a certain time, maybe 7, 8, 10 p.m., try to cut it off. Maybe use that time for sleeping or use it for something else, but get your studying done at a different time. Avoid alcohol. Sometimes we think that drinking helps us wind down and fall asleep, but it can make it falling asleep easier. It interferes with the sleep cycle and prevents deep restorative sleep. So your deep sleep is your REM sleep, and the more deep sleep you have, the better your mood is going to be. Avoid taking naps. If you do, keep it to 20 to 30 minutes. I've even had maybe a 20 or a 10-minute nap. Those often help you more than taking a longer because you feel kind of sluggish. Only use your bed for sleeping. Watching Netflix, doing homework, or scrolling through your phone may all be more comfortable to do in bed, but that can make it more difficult to actually fall asleep because your brain is associating your bed with those other activities. Nutrition: eat plenty of vegetables, fruits, greens, drink plenty of water, eat fewer grams of sugar and processed foods. I don't think we realize how much sugar is in anything we eat. But technically the recommended is like 24 to 32 grams of sugar, and you can drink 1 can of Dr. Pepper and be done for the day. So if you're doing that or you're drinking anything like that, imagine what you're putting in your body for the entire day, and it directly affects your mental health. Taking the time to eat breakfast. I know a common theme with my clients is really in students in general is I don't have time to eat. I forget. I don't have time. But taking the time to eat breakfast, choosing something healthier than that piece of pizza and donut in the dining hall, it does make you feel better, and it's more constant energy and focus throughout the day. And that goes back to what I said, is it really does directly affect your mental health. Okay. So it's like, a car needs gas and needs fuel to run. Well, our bodies and our brains need the same thing to run. So if you're depending on what you're feeding it, is going to be the outcome you get throughout the day. Exercise. Make sure to take the time at least several times a week to move your body. Exercise is a key to self-care and to our overall wellness. So even if it really is 20 to 30 minutes every single day, if you get more than that, that is awesome. But if you're not very active, maybe working your way up and starting to walk in 20 minutes a day. So do whatever it is you enjoy doing: running, skiing, walking, swimming. I know obviously right now we're limited, but I've noticed, I guess the only thing we can really do, it helps that I have a gym here, but is I've walked so much. But it's amazing the endorphins that it releases whenever you work out. You really do feel better. But just taking 20 to 30 minutes from your studying to lift weights, go for a walk, swim, anything to make you feel calm and focused and efficient when you return to your homework or whatever you're doing. Okay, so well-being and resilience. I love resilience. Well, I'll just kind of give the metaphor later when I get to that. But all right, so wellness. According to the World Health Organization, wellness is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. So wellness is the cornerstone to our quality of life. It determines how we look, feel, interact with others, and thrive in life, school, and work. So developing wellness is an active process that involves finding the appropriate tools to make you a healthier and happier human being. And resilience is one of those tools. So it's a key component of well-being. It's the ability to recognize, face, and either manage or overcome problems and challenges in one's life. So basically, it's your ability to bounce back. I was asked last year, are you going to be an egg or are you going to be a bouncy ball? And I looked at her like she was crazy. I was like, what are you talking about? But she said, if you throw an egg against the wall or you throw it on the ground or you drop it, what happens? It cracks. Okay. It's almost impossible to put back together. But if you throw a bouncy ball, it may have a little scrapes. It may be a little discolored, but it's going to bounce back. And that right there is being resilient. Are you going to bounce back in the face of adversity? So it's adapting well to adversity, whether it's trauma, tragedy, relationships, school, it's bouncing back from those experiences. So now we'll just kind of look at the roadmap to resiliency. These are really good ways to build that. So making connections, good relationships with close family members, friends, or others are important. Accepting help and support from those who care about you. This is sometimes hard. I know even me, I'm very independent, but sometimes it really does help to step out of that comfort zone and just ask for help. We really can't do it on our own all the time. So making connections, and I know right now that's kind of hard, but if you can maintain that social connectedness somehow, FaceTime, Zoom, whatever it is, that would be great. Avoid seeing crisis as insurmountable problems. So you can't change the fact that a highly stressful event happens, but you can change how you interpret and respond to those events. So it goes back to the circle of control. Okay, if you can't control it, change the way you look at it. And I know that's really hard, but sometimes we have to take a step back and say, what am I stressing about? Can I control it? If not, why am I wasting my energy trying to change it if I can't? And so that's when you go to a different mindset, a different perspective and outlook. All right, so accept the change as a part of living. Certain goals may no longer be attainable as a result of adverse situations. Accepting circumstances that cannot be changed can help you focus on circumstances that you can alter. So that's just a step forward. Is one, it's okay for change. I know it can be hard sometimes, but that has to happen sometimes when you can't change the situation. And you have to kind of figure it out. So move towards your goals, develop some realistic goals. One thing I do talk about in therapy is SMART goals. And that it's an acronym for measurable, specific, all these different things that when you look at it, they are realistic goals that you actually can achieve. You're not setting yourself up for failure due to high expectations. So do something regularly, even if it seems like a small accomplishment. So it enables you to move towards your goal. Instead of focusing on tasks that seem unachievable, ask yourself, what's the one thing I know I can accomplish today that helps me move in the direction I want to go? So even if it's small goals and achievements, you're at least moving towards something. And a lot of times what happens is when we do set those unrealistic goals and we don't meet them, we tend to give up more often. Take decisive actions. So act on adverse situations as much as you can. So basically just do it, just act, just make the decision. Don't sit there and ponder on it a lot of the times. So rather than detaching completely from problems and stresses and wishes and wishing they would just go away, shutting down, anything like that, take those actions that need to be done. Y'all, I know y'all gotta tell me if I'm talking too fast. Okay. So look for opportunities for self-discovery. People often learn something about themselves and may find that they have grown in some respect as a result of their struggle with loss. Many people who have experienced tragedies and hardship have reported better relationships, greater sense of strength, even while feeling vulnerable, increased sense of self-worth, a more developed spirituality, and heightened appreciation for life. I don't know about you, but that is probably my number one thing that I've discovered through all of this working from home and not being able to do everything. So I don't know if anybody else is in the same boat, but I have struggled with the loss of different things, and I have struggled with that, and it has brought a greater sense of strength through all those areas. Nurture a positive view of yourself. So developing confidence in your ability to solve problems and trust in your instincts help build resilience. That goes with self-esteem too. Keep things in perspective. So even when facing very painful events, try to consider the stressful situation in a broader context and keep a long-term perspective. It's very easy right now to get stuck in the I'm losing so much, I can't do this, I can't do this. But when you try to turn it a little bit, even through the sad, sometimes we can find a silver lining. Like for me, it is very sad, about all the stuff that is going on. But for my silver lining is I've never had the time for self-care. That is my positive. That's my way of turning it around for me and saying, you know what, long term, I'm going to be better for this because I'm more refreshed when I go back. So just keeping those things in perspective and trying to see the positive as much as possible. Okay, last one, I promise. All right, so maintain a hopeful outlook. Kind of goes back to if you lose hope, that is probably one of the number one things, and that meaning and that purpose, that's what causes depression right there. It makes your depressed mood go significantly up. So an optimistic outlook enables you to expect the good things will happen in your life. Try visualizing what you want rather than worrying about what you fear. And a lot of times I think I saw something the other day that said, anxiety doesn't come by thinking about the future. Anxiety comes when you try to control it. I think it's both, but it has some value to it. So take care of yourself. So this kind of goes back to the self-care. So pay attention to your own needs and feelings. Engage in activities that you enjoy and find relaxing. Exercise regularly. Take care of yourself. Helps to keep your mind and body primed to deal with situations that require resilience. If you are already in a better situation emotionally, mentally, physically, whatever it may be, you're going to adapt better. You're going to be able to be more resilient than if you're already in a not so well state of mind and then something else happens. You're going to bounce back more. Additional ways of strengthening resilience may be helpful. So some people write about their deepest thoughts. So journaling, feelings related to trauma or other stressful events, meditation, spiritual practices. So whether it's praying, some of my clients, their number one coping skill is to go to God. It's praying. Some of them, they're just the meditation, mindfulness of it, taking a minute, shutting everything off, and just being in the present moment helps them. And obviously all this was taken from the American Psychological Associations. I have to say that. But all of those are a very good way, and I'm sure there's others, but all those are a very good way of getting to that roadmap to resiliency. Okay, like I said, y'all, I talk really fast. But is there any questions about any of those slides or just anything?
I do have a question. I don't know if you can answer it.
Okay.
But do you know how we could find out like who our advisor would be?
For like your academic advisor?
Yes.
I do not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Advisor for like counseling or stuff, or do we just go through the process you showed us earlier?
Are you talking about if you wanted to be a client at the counseling center?
Yes.
Yes. So in order to be a client, what you would do is you would normally drop in, but right now you'll just call the counseling center, and the two front desk people are still there. And based on your schedule and availability, they'll put you with somebody. They'll put you on the schedule.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Bryant?
Yes.
Yes, my name's Joanne Medina. And earlier you mentioned that students had to schedule an appointment 2 weeks in advance. There weren't any drop-in appointments. Is that correct?
So the 2 weeks in advance would be the outreach request. which is like what I'm doing today, a presentation. Because those require more time to get everything ready for the availability of, because typically we do but more than one therapist. We just couldn't do it today. But typically it requires two therapists because we like to have a backup. And then we have to get those schedules at the same time. So 2 weeks gives us enough time. And you'd be surprised how busy our schedules and how fast they get full with clients. So that just kind of gives us enough time to get everything done and see if we have availability. As far as therapy goes,
Yes, ma'am.
there are times in the semester to where there is I don't want to say a wait list really, because it's not really a wait list. You're not on a wait list, but you, from the time you call to the time that you see a therapist for your first time, it may be 2 weeks because they may put you on the schedule that day, but it may be 2 weeks later. Just because in certain months there are very high demand. So even with 8 to 10 therapists there, most of the time we are pretty booked. Does that make sense?
It does, but if someone is experiencing some of the notions that you were going over, the depression, the anxiety, fear, and then they have to wait 2 weeks. I mean, is there something other than going through that emergency,
So
calling
if
the
you
emergency
are,
number, or?
yes, so that's where the drop-in hours would come in normally, so 2 to 4, and that's typically where we see that is when you're going through something like that, whether you're just really high anxiety, some people maybe just had a panic attack that day, or it got too
Yes,
overwhelming, whatever the case may be, they would drop in those hours. Now, if it's an emergency, you don't have to wait 2 to 4. If it's an emergency, like right now, you would just call. That happened to me the other day. Someone called in with an emergency, and they called me, and I called the client back, and that's a little different with it being, distance.
ma'am.
But I had to call them, and then I was able to talk them down. So that's kind of how it looks like right now. But normally, if say we're back to normal and we're in the office, if you're in a crisis situation, you can drop in at any time. Now we're all in session, which sometimes happens. You may have to wait 15 to 20 minutes until one of us is out, but we're going to see you
Yes,
at
ma'am.
some point. Somebody is, yeah.
Okay, thank you. I guess on another note, are they assigned specific counselors? I guess does it go according to last name? Is it according to maybe
No,
freshmen, their
no,
classification?
no. That does not there. That's not considered at all. So what happens is, you. I wish I could show you my screen, but I can't because it's confidential. The way it is like we use titanium, which is a scheduling type thing, and we're all on the schedule, and so we can kind of the front desk kind of knows who's open and who's available. But the way it is each of us kind of have different placeholders for intakes, which is the new appointments. And so depending on who's open, what time they're open, and if that works with your schedule, that's kind of how we put those so that everybody's seeing basically the same amount, and so that everybody's being seen, if that makes sense.
Okay, yes, ma'am. So they're just
Yeah.
not assigned one particular person.
No. So the way it works is like I'll just kind of say this real fast. The process is, so like say that I have an intake with somebody and I really feel like that client would benefit more treatment wise from a clinician that is more experienced in this area. I would take that to staffing at our staff meeting, and I would present my client, and then we would place that client with or sometimes we come in and they see a male for their intake and they would prefer a female because of the relationship with the client and the therapist. And so it's not smart really to stay with a male if you're requesting a female. We can't honor that every time due to availability, but we do try to honor the preference.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, perfect. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Any more questions?
I think I do have one more.
Okay, no, you're fine.
If you see students are maybe stressed, maybe with just this their first time away from home, they're talking about their classes maybe being too overwhelming. They're still getting the gist of being on campus, everything being new. If we see that they're unable to find those services on campus like tutorials, things of that nature, will you be that that channel maybe to give them that information, or do y'all work with other areas where they can get that assistance, or give them that
We
information? Or
we will sure try. I can tell you that. That's one of the things that I like about therapy is I've had the same, not really problem, but the same situation to where someone's come and they just don't know what to do. It's kind of like you said, they're just overwhelmed with being new. We call it adjusting to college in general, right? It's like everything's thrown at them. They don't really know where to go for this and where to go for that. So especially the front desk is really good at that. I don't know if it's because Betty's been here for 25 years, but I know, but she knows her way around this college. So they're really good at the front desk, even helping with some of that. So sometimes we'll have people call, and if it's not really a therapeutic question, she can answer it. Otherwise, I've had people in session who we've talked about different things, and I've looked up a number for them on the computer because it would help them, whether it was an advisor or whether it was, here's the disability services. We can refer them to different departments if that's what they need.
Okay, perfect. Do you see students come to you for maybe campus not being too safe? And I know all campuses have that.
Yeah.
But do you see maybe more so that maybe violence or just something on campus that they're just maybe just walking on campus, or studying at night in different buildings? Is
Not
that maybe a problem on your campus?
not as much now, and I guess I'm assuming obviously it has to do with most people going home.
Yes, ma'am.
But yes, we definitely, with all the events that took on this year at our campus, we definitely had that in waves. It was like a few people here, and then it would kind of die down, and then a few people here. But yeah, we definitely did see that.
Okay. Did you see that more in the past or just recently, this past year?
This is my first year here, so I couldn't answer that.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Okay. If there's no more questions, I guess we can end it. Is everyone good?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very
Okay.
much for your time.
All right. You're welcome.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.